All right, good morning, everyone. I hope you're all well. Welcome to today's training. I'm going to do just a brief introduction and overview to who we are as an organization, and then we'll let Ray introduce himself and the topic that he'll be presenting on today. But if you're not familiar with us, the Early Childhood Partnership of Adams County, or ECPAC, we are Adams County's Early Childhood Council. Our mission is to build a community where every young child and their family can reach their full potential. And our ultimate goal is that children are entering school healthy and ready to succeed in all facets. So what we're trying to do is cultivate an effective early childhood ecosystem for children ages birth through 5 and their families. This is defined as every child and family in Adams County having equitable access to high quality and affordable services and supports that they need in order to thrive. This requires whole community collaborative impact, which is why we do so much of our work as a partnership and why it's part of our name. Therefore, we collaborate with those who have an impact in young children's lives, including those who care for children, support children, teach children, and invest in children. Together, our work strengthens the connections between these groups. It fills gaps in resources, increases the quality of care, support, and education for children and families. We have 3 main areas of work. One is going to be systems. This is accomplished through partnerships. We're addressing barriers, improving policy, increasing funding, and increasing public awareness. Our other bucket is early learning. You may know our Director of Early Learning, Rachel Hubbard. Why did I say Rebecca? Rebecca's been gone for 2 years now. Rachel Hubbard. And this work supports providers around pre-licensing, program improvement, professional development in early learning programs, childcare preschools, family friend and neighbor programs, as well as family home providers. And then the bucket of child and family health and well-being, which is my area. And we are working closely with families as well as family supporting organizations, trying to connect families to resources. We provide classes and groups and trying to improve access to basic essentials or emergency supplies and resources. We're always keeping our eye on these different factors and working to prevent or mitigate the impacts of poverty, child abuse and neglect, mothers with 3 or more risk factors, and poor academic outcomes. When looking at data consistently, we're always kind of below where we want to be or above where we want to be when we're looking at these different factors, and that we know all of these have a huge impact on family wellness. Here is a slide of our family resource websites. We have a lot of different resources that can be found here, resources for families, specifically in Adams County. And then you can see the different areas that you can click on to try and connect families to these different resources. If you ever are aware of a resource that is not present, please just reach out. We want to make sure that everything, or as much as possible, is captured on these websites for families and for community serving organizations as well. So how does today's training fit into our new strategic plan? That is going to fall under a couple of different goals. We're wanting community members, partners, and service providers to be better positioned to understand and act upon matters related to early childhood. We're hoping that ECPAC partners will support increased and equitable functioning of the early childhood system. We're also hoping that ECPAC partners and staff, of course, are championing high quality, family centered, and equitable programs and best practices by actively supporting the adoption by partners, by early care and education programs, and within our internal processes. Lisa, did I miss anything? I haven't gone through this new pre-training PowerPoint before.
Say so. I think the only thing I would add is that this training, like all of our trainings, is really focused on that goal number 2 that Stephanie just mentioned. And the outcome around that goal is that children and families experience services and supports that honor their needs, their culture, and their lived experience. So we know that fathers play an incredibly important role in that piece. And so how we can provide trainings to support you all in better engaging fathers in the work you do so that we are truly supporting that whole family and giving families the best experience that we can through our services. We always say that it's one thing to increase access to your services and making sure families walk through your door, and it's another to keep families there and to have them experience positive outcomes because we've provided a service in a way that really meets families' needs. So that's what we're hoping you will get out of today's training. And from there, I think we'll turn it over to Ray.
Morning. Can everyone hear me? Good. Oh, I'm going to be assisted today by Missy, and as she pulls up the PowerPoint, here we go. So this was initially going to be a little longer training, but I've done a couple things to shorten the training, and hopefully we'll be able to get out of here a little bit sooner. Can everyone just put your hands over your head? Okay, now put your hands out. Okay, so we've gone over the overhead and the handouts. So that should take some time off a little bit. So I'm Ray Washington. I'm the founder and executive director of Fatherhood Services. I'm going to be assisted today by Missy, who's the education and training manager with Illuminate Colorado.
Good morning, everybody. I'm happy to be here with you supporting Ray.
Okay, can we get the next slide? So I want to just kind of go through the audience and just ask everyone to introduce yourself in the chat and respond to the statements that are on the slide. One being one way your culture impacts how you engage fathers. And then another thing is something that you would hope to learn in this training series. And we'll give you a few minutes to do that.
And if people want to turn cameras off until they've put that information in the chat box, that just gives Ray and I a visual cue of when everybody's gotten their content in the chat box. We've got a lot of people doing the name. If you guys can remember to do those last two pieces too. So how your culture impacts the way you engage fathers and something you hope to walk away with today.
looks like we may have one person on the phone. If you just want to, if you're unable to do the chat, go ahead and feel free to introduce yourself out loud.
Lots of good stuff coming in there on the chat. Are you seeing that, Ray?
Yes, ma'am. There's lots and lots.
Nice. I see cameras coming back on as people getting their information typed into the chat box. So we'll watch for cameras to be back on. Started. Some really nice reflections from you guys. Excited when I see names I know. Give another minute or two for people to finish putting responses in the chat box. This is actually really helpful for us to kind of see where you guys are coming in from. And know that me and Xfinity are in a big fight, so my internet keeps cutting out. But so tell me if you missed something or if we get stuck somewhere. They moved my modem right by my computer, but I don't have a port for my cord to go into my computer, so I'm stuck on the Wi-Fi. All right, we ready, Ray? You feel like we've got some good stuff in there? People reflecting on some of the machismo that they experienced in their life and wanting to sort of shift how that shows up. Some people talking about their experience having fathers present or not present in their childhood and how that impacts how they show up to fathers and their goal of keeping fathers engaged. What were you in there, Ray? Anything you wanted to pull out?
There's just so much. I'm really impressed with some of the stuff that's here, and a lot of it I see is just things that we kind of work through every day, and one of the reasons that we're training is to see how we can do a job with the area of opportunity of engaging fathers.
So I think on that note, Ray, do you want me to go ahead and start our first activity?
Yes, please.
All right. So how many of you have done breakout rooms in Zoom before? Can I show of reactions, show of hands? So some people are pretty comfortable with it. An activity just to kind of get things started. And I'm going to put you guys in breakout rooms to have a discussion. But what we're going to do first is I'm going to put a question on the screen, and I'm going to want a piece of paper and a pen. So if people could grab a piece of paper and a pen, or if you're on your computer tech savvy, you can open up a Word document and just type into a Word document for yourself. But we're going to do an activity where I'm going to put a question up on the screen for you, and you're going to write down your response to that question. I want you really just brainstorming and thinking with this question. And some of you are going to be like, why this question? This is the wrong question. It's not the wrong question. I promise it's the question I want you to answer. So don't like get all crazy and start thinking, what is she trying to do? Like, just answer the question that's on the screen. A minute to brainstorm around that question. And then I'm going to put you into breakout rooms, and you're going to discuss with your partners in your breakout rooms what your responses were, and come up with a group list that includes everything you had in your that your group came up with. Does that make sense what I'm having you do? So I'm going to put a question on the screen. You're going to reflect for a minute, and then you're going to go into a group and put all of your reflections together and bring more. Okay? Ready? All right. Remember, it's not a trick question. I promise. I actually want you to answer the question. How can we make sure that feel isolated and unwelcome within our programs? So if we others to just not want to walk into our buildings, not want to speak to us, not want to engage with us, what are some of the things we could do to make sure that happens? And there will be bonus points for the groups that come up with this and wild ideas. I've had people come up with some really profound things in here. I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to give you a minute to come up with as many ways and then we'll go into breakout rooms. Thirty more seconds. Come up with any ideas as you can. And while you're in your breakout rooms, you guys, I am going to ask that one person from the group be kind of the note taker, because we will ask you to report the wildest idea your group came up with in the box. Okay? So we're going to put you in your breakout room. You're going to have 6 minutes in your breakout room to share what you came up with and expand your list. Sound good?
Missy, can you pause the recording while we're in the breakout room, please?
I sure can. All right, I'm going to go ahead and send you guys in. Holler at me if you're stuck or something happens and you should go automatically into the room. Otherwise, you should have a button that pops up that asks you to go into the room, and there is always a help button in the breakout room. So we will see you in 6 minutes. Yasmin, did you get the invitation to go into a breakout room? Yasmin, are you there?
And thank you.
Welcome back. So I would love to have groups, if you identified a person, to put your wildest idea in the chat box. If you could go ahead and have your person do that, we will watch for it in the chat box. We do have 10 groups. So if there's maybe one or two groups that want to share out verbally, we'd love to hear your wildest ideas on how to make dads be uncomfortable when they show up to your programming. What could we do? What'd you come up with? Lower the ceilings to only accommodate shorter mothers. I'm short, so that'd be fine with me. Don't invite them in the room. Speaking only to the caregiver, always assume that the father is not involved and do not address them for questions or input on the children. Calling the wrong name, not asking their name, ignoring or talking over them, citing one parent. Wow, you guys came up with some good stuff. I think dads would feel very excited to be a part of your programs if you guys were doing some of these things. Ray, what do you think? What's your favorite one that you see in the chat box, Ray? Oh, you're muted.
I like the saying that that this is a mommy and child only event.
Oh, yeah.
And I would love to see a father figure with a circle around it with a line through it saying no fathers.
I didn't see that one in there.
That one came out of my head.
That's a good
Isn't
one.
that a movie, Ray?
Pardon?
Isn't that a movie right now, No Fathers?
If it's not, it should be.
Good things coming up here. Providing poor customer service, ignoring them. Wow, some good stuff coming up out of your groups. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna need you all to be a little bit vulnerable. Can we be vulnerable for a moment as we think about others? People willing to go there with me? So I want you to re-look at your list, okay, your individual list. And I want you to take the next minute to, if you wrote on paper, go ahead and circle or put a star next to the items on the list that in some way resemble what we might actually be doing. Okay, so identify if there's anything on that list that in some way resembles how we show up in our spaces. And this takes a little bit of, again, a little bit of vulnerability, because none of us want to, think that we do things to exclude fathers. So you don't tell me, don't tell us in the chat box what's on your list. I'm gonna go into your groups again, and I want you to have a discussion this time about what are the things that are showing up in some way, and what do you think the impact is to fathers when they walk in your spaces? Okay, so I'll give you a little bit longer to just look at your list again. You're going to go into the same breakout rooms, but this time you're going to have 10 minutes so that you can really talk about what's showing up in terms of it might be having a negative impact on father engagement. Everyone ready? All right, I'm going to send you back into your rooms. Have a good discussion. Some good discussions about this one? What'd you come up with? You can share either that, or I'd love to have some people share out verbally what you talked about.
I'll be bold and share out the hard thing that we talked about, that our culture gives so many mixed messages saying, hey, it's just the woman's decision and we don't want dad involved and from the start of decision making, but then we want dad to financially support the child, but we don't really want them involved in raising the child. And yet we recognize all the literature supports how important it is to engage fathers to be present. So our culture gives horrible mixed messages all the time. And there's like, so where do you start with that?
Beth, can I push you a little bit farther? I'd love to hear if you identified any way mixed messages are showing up at your organizations.
I mean, I can say here, like, so nurse family partnership, it is engage, even though it says helping first time parents succeed, we engage with the mom. It's the mom that signs up, not the dad. Mom gets to decide who wants to be at the visits and who can be engaged. If we want to share, if they're not together and they don't have their dad at the visit, the father at the visit, we need permission from the mom to share anything with it. So it is a definitely mother focused, even though it's talking about first time parents, it is a mother focused program.
Thanks for being willing to be vulnerable and reflective on that. Anyone else want to share out either verbally, or doesn't put anything in the chat yet? So either of those avenues for sharing out.
We said that we have a lot of assumptions, like that the moms will share with dads, and that doesn't always happen. That the dads don't want to be involved, because a lot of agencies get referrals due to pregnancy, and so everything is focused on the mom. And even in the pamphlets of some agencies, it says, can the dad participate? Or, are they welcome to? And then also we, a lot of places do parenting classes, but it's just for the moms.
So it's not a low ceiling. There's a clear message there, huh? How about some other groups? If your group hasn't put anything in the chat yet, if you want to share out verbally.
I'll jump in. Group 3, we talked about not having enough time. We have a large caseload, and the quality of communication that we're unable to provide, our fathers that have questions or whatnot, we're not able to give that to them. Another component was maybe that self-care component. How do we not carry on whatever we have at home, or even other situations with other clients? It's a heavy crisis event that you're carrying from that to the next, and then you're talking to that father, and how do you not carry that into your next meeting? So just being able to, the inability to honor that father's time and focusing on them, like that inability to do that comes up in some of our workspaces.
Too, and I think, I heard you say that maybe the meeting before kind of puts you on edge, but sometimes our own history maybe puts us on edge. or our own personal experiences maybe cause us to show up in certain ways with different people. So I think not just that last meeting, right? But there's lots of different ways that we might be affected in how we show up with fathers. Anyone else want to share out?
I think in our group, we talked about the fact that fathers get blamed for a lot of the issues that are that bring their families into court, or just for the issues in general. And I think Beth Carter actually kind of summed up what we were feeling as well, that there's a lot of hypocrisy. You know, we say we want to keep the families together, but when push comes to shove, the language is very much in the voice of the mother. And it's that way in the courts. It's not just in our agencies. It's a pretty loud voice that speaks to the mothers and not including the fathers.
Yeah.
I know for my organization, I was thinking of like the employees that interact with the public. It's definitely female, a lot more females that interact. And I was just thinking of like, if we already have males that may already have that kind of machismo, and they show up and they right away notice it's a female, right? There may be that defensiveness. And then depending on how this, how the woman was raised or her interaction with males throughout her life, does that trigger any kind of past trauma or just interaction? So then now you have both sides that are, become very defensive. And so how are we able to serve that population or change that mindset on both ends?
That's powerful. And then if that staff member hands you a pamphlet that says that only moms can be, or moms get to decide if dad is involved, that might escalate that a little bit further, right? What else? Anything that hasn't been shared that your group came up with?
So in our group, Cindy, who works at a preschool, was giving us some really great ideas how to engage with fathers. And it really got me thinking about even the literature we're giving to parents for parents to read can be really mom focused. Like, are dads being represented in the books that we're providing to families? And also like thinking about the systems that are setting dads up kind of for failure, like not having, one of the people in our group did mention, like, she doesn't even think that there's a spot in her documentation where she can actually put notes for the father. So like thinking along those terms, like the systems have to change as well. Programs can start the change, but the systems have to change as well.
Mm-hmm. Ray, I see you shaking your head. What would you add to that? Oh yeah, Carrie and Val, go.
One other thing we mentioned in our group was that in Nurse Family Partnership, we are allowed to enroll transgender fathers into the program, but why can't we enroll as like a primary client, but we don't enroll other fathers into the program. So unless you have a uterus, you can't be a primary client, even if you identify. So yeah, so it says first-time parents, but it's limited.
I see a lot of head shaking and nodding yes, so, and I also want to say that I'm really pleasantly surprised by the number of men that are on the call. And that speaks to me with us moving toward cultural congruency, with fathers.
Yeah. So there's one more step to this activity, you guys. And, you've done the reflection to kind of think through how in your agency or in your own work, maybe there's ways your is showing up to disclude fathers. So the last task that I have for you is to look at your list of are doing in some way and think about, what is it that I could stop? What could I stop doing that could shift this? Okay, so this is thinking personally for you, what you can do. What's your first? This always leads into lots of big ideas. So I do want your group to, track some of those ideas to put in the chat box for us, because that's really great next steps for this whole group. But I want you really thinking about something you can. Okay. So I'm going to give you a minute again to do that piece. And then I'm going to put you back in your groups. And I want you guys to brainstorm as many things that you could stop. Sound good?
Stop or start doing, or just stop doing?
Yeah, the goal is what you can stop doing. So like, I can stop only taking notes on the mom, or whatever it is. Because we want to think about what it is that we need to end doing before we move to what we want to start doing. We've got to stop some behaviors before we can initiate new behaviors that will make dads be more included. Welcome back, guys. Groups just have a few more seconds to come on back, and then we'll get going. If someone in your group took notes and was going to drop them into the chat, you're welcome to go ahead and do that now. Welcome back. All right, so you are welcome to go ahead and have your group drop your notes, your ideas on what needs to be in your agencies in the chat. And I'd love to hear from some people verbally about what came out. This is the part of this activity that I find really brings hope and action to people. And we start with this activity because you guys already have so much knowledge in you. So we want to honor that. So share with us what you came up with. Stephanie, I love that. Stephanie said, stop being surprised when it's a father reaching out to be engaged.
One of the things that my group talked about was just how easy it is on intake to ask if there is a second parent involved, not assuming that there is, and also not assuming that that parent is a male, but once it has been confirmed that there is a second parent involved, making sure to get that parent's contact information, even if they're not present at intake or enrollment.
So I love that. Making sure that we're starting out that engagement process right away versus waiting for someone to show up. Who else wants to share?
I'm from Elizabeth's group, but I just was thinking heavily about something you said at the end of our meeting, Elizabeth, or breakout room, which was meeting fathers where they are. And I'm wondering if, we start putting flyers at for parenting classes or flyers for whatever we're doing, right? Because we have flyers for everything. At barbershops or at places that men go, which is kind of what Elizabeth was saying in the breakout room. And I really just started getting me thinking, because I feel like we put flyers at pediatrician offices. We put them at WIC. We put them at other governmental buildings. We put them at preschools. We put them in all these places. But have we really thought about maybe going that extra mile and maybe showing up to the local barbershops that are right down the road from the preschool? I mean, there's 2 down the road from my child's preschool, right? Or maybe other places where fathers engage. Or what about rec centers? What about, there's evenings where they have basketball meetups and the guys get together and they play basketball at rec centers. I mean, or things like that. So Elizabeth, first, thank you for getting my wheels turning. And I'm just kind of piggybacking and continuing just those thoughts from what we were talking about, because I think that's something we don't do. And I wonder if we reevaluate what our outreach really looks like and maybe take it a step further.
See, it's so hard to just think about the stop, and everybody always moves to, this is what I'm going to start to do. So thank you for taking us there, Heather. How about other people? Who else wants to share what you are going to stop doing? No, don't be sorry, Heather. It's where we all go. It's good. It's a good place to go to. Let's hear from people.
I like one thing that was said with regards to stop not prioritizing. There was a memo that came out from the Office of Administration of Children and Families that only suggested we make engaging fathers a priority across the board. And there were several things stated in there as to why. So that really fits in with where the Administration for Children and Families are going with regards to the priority of engaging fathers.
Anyone else want to jump in and share what your group came up with? There's a lot of really great stuff in the chat. I hope you guys take a minute and take a look by everything people put in there, because there's some really, really great stuff. Is probably new information. It's just really putting the focus back on what you already know inherently, so that you can really purposefully start acting in different ways to others. So I'm going to go ahead and pass things on over to Ray, who's going to take us into that piece of why it is that we need to be engaging fathers and what role you all play in ensuring that fathers are active in their kids' lives.
Can we stick right up, back up, Missy?
The PowerPoint, Ray? Sorry, I thought it was up.
So I want to discuss a little bit around what your role is, or what is your role with regards to engaging fathers, or do you have a role within your current serving? Go ahead, Veronica. Can everyone hear me? So, you know, fathers interact with their children differently than mothers. Not better, not worse, differently. Some of the things I want to bring to light are some of the studies that we have looked at show that fathers are more physically active with their babies and young children. They discipline different to help the children manage frustration. Fathers are more likely to use humor and teasing to redirect behavior. And fathers emphasize different vocabulary and ideas when reading aloud. Children. Can we go to the next slide, Missy? So both the quality and quantity of fathers' interaction with young children matter. I think this is important because, you know, I've been doing this for a while, and some of the data that I look at is amazing. And I think the more informed that we can come about this data, the more we would be inclined to make this a priority, engaging fathers, especially when we understand how it impacts the development of the children. Both the quality and quantity of father interactions matter more frequently in positive father involvement, which is social and emotional development and cognitive. And so with this knowledge and operating with this understanding, I think that we will be able to really be a little bit more creative and innovative and prioritize father engagement. So fathers' playfulness with their toddlers boosts the children's vocabulary skills in pre-kindergarten. I know we opened up and someone talked about, I think I was talking to Stephanie maybe about she has a child that's in this right now. Mother's playfulness is related to the children's emotional regulations. Father's playfulness is really directly involves the children's vocabulary skills in pre.
Ray, your sound's cutting in and out for me. Is it cutting out for other people as well? I don't know if maybe moving a little to your computer would help, but it's cutting out some of what you're sharing.
I'm going to see if maybe I can up here. Maybe not. So non-residential fathers' involvement in child-related activities, positive father-child relationships associated with children's social and emotional well-being, academic achievement, and the behavioral adjustment. Is it still breaking up, Missy? Am I still breaking up, Missy?
Sorry, I muted myself a little bit.
Okay.
But it's better than it was, at least for
Okay.
me. Are other people experiencing that? I never know if it's my internet or someone else's. A little better.
Try to speak up a little bit as well.
Thanks, Ray.
Mm-hmm. Next slide. So some of the strategies that we want to look at as far as engaging fathers is one being supporting that father and child relationship, share more information about child progress, and advocate for fathers to be visible partners in learning environments. We'll talk a little bit later about sharing information about child progress and how that can work with regards to engaging fathers. But really being able to and authentically supporting that father-child relationship. Some of this goes back to our biases, whether it be from our lived experience or not. But I think that at the end of the day, we can recognize and admit that we're all biased. And so there's nothing that is wrong with having our bias. We all have our individual bias. Really being able to identify what those barriers are and how we work with those barriers to engage fathers is crucial. I think that's really one of the things that will be able to move us forward in a better direction once we are able to admit that we have biases, and that we can still work with fathers with biases.
And I think we saw that come out in the reflections that people had in that last activity too, right? That not only might our own come out, but some of our ways that we've set up our systems are inherently biased, and that impacts the capacity for fathers to even have the opportunity to engage in some settings.
Yes. And, just from looking at some of the comments and listening to some of the conversations today, I'm really encouraged. And I think that we're all positioned to become better advocates of fathers, to be visible partners in the learning environment. Fathers do have a right to their child or children's educational process, unless their parenting rights have been terminated. Well, I want to keep that in mind, and I'd like us to be mindful of that. We advocate for. So supporting the father-child relationships, we can really, establish mutual trusting partnerships. We can value the role and impact of fathers, notice and appreciate individual strengths of fathers, and validate how complicated parenting can be. Because I think a lot of times what I've seen with fathers is, they see how complicated parenting can be, and at many times they think it's just through us being able to, in position to validate for them how complicated parenting really can be, and then that makes it okay for a lot of fathers.
With and that machismo and everything that came up in the beginning of the term really is very present in the willingness of fathers, especially, to ask for help around parenting. Right? If I buy into this expectation, sort of who society says I have to be as a man, and I walk into spaces not designed and clearly not supportive of me being present in my kid's life, I'm having a hell of a time parenting my kid. Am I really going to feel comfortable asking? Illuminate actually did a study on parent willingness to ask for help. And what that study found was that 1 in 4 parents identified that they had someone who they could ask for help. Okay, so 1 in 4 parents said there is someone I could reach out to. But then of that group that said they did have someone that they could ask for help, only 1 in 5 of them would ask for help. So when we think about who's asking for help and who's sort of those societal expectations are on who's okay to ask for help, we can see how some of that machismo, some of that toxic masculinity might impact even further the likelihood of fathers to even ask for help. So if our environments are validating the difficulty in parenting and normalizing that it's hard to parent, right, and really building meaningful relationships that are supportive and strength-based, we're not going to see a return on that relationship strengthened with children.
I think just in general, as men, it's really hard for us as men to ask for. And I think that when we are working to parent our children, that's difficult enough within itself. Then when we run into barriers with regards to that, whether it be programmatically or systematically, it makes it even harder. And in that process, too many times, men just give up. Process.
So what would it look like when you guys see this supporting father relationships and you see these 4 pieces? I'd love to hear from some people some ideas that you have on how you could demonstrate that you value the role of parents, what it would look like for you to notice and appreciate individual strengths. What would it sound like for you to normalize how difficult parenting looks like, and give us some. I think I broke up for a minute there.
Yes.
So those 4 circles in the chat box, give us some statements that you could make that would demonstrate. Me and Xfinity, guys. We're having a good week.
Maybe you can type the question in the chat and we'll all take a peek and we'll
Yeah.
All right. It looks like she is wanting us to type in examples of what we would say to fathers that would align with the values or the behaviors you see here in the circles. Establish mutual trusting partnerships, value their role and impact of fathers, notice and appreciate fathers' individual strengths, and validate how complicating parenting can be. So what might you say to fathers that help you show these 4 things?
And if you can hear me, you can respond verbally with some responses as well, too. It doesn't just have to be typed in. Oh, I love that, Emelisa. Start noticing and verbal strengths and involvement. So just acknowledging their presence when they show up.
One of the things that came out in our breakup group around that is that often, even when both parents are there, it's easier to look at the mom and address her the whole time. And how do you share equal contact, eye contact, make sure that you're asking questions of both of them. So that was one thing that came up related to that.
Nice. Great, Kim. I love that. The more we can really specifically articulate what it is that they're going to keep doing that skill and having the confidence to do additional skills and behaviors as well. Slide and let you, it's actually my slide, so give me a minute to run a speed test while you guys are typing in things. Notices that I'm noticing that my Wi-Fi is not working, and then they make it work. I don't know if that's actually what I tell myself. All right, am I still frozen? I can see you guys moving, but I can't tell you moving.
You're good.
Okay. So when you think about kind of in really showing up and supporting that parent-child relationship, one of the reasons that the early childhood environment is so important is because it's one of our primary opportunities to build the protective factors. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with the protective factors. The protective factors are 5 different research informed characteristics that when present in a family actually reduce abuse or neglect. And so in the early childhood role, being that person that validates how hard parenting is for a parent, you're actually helping build parent resilience, right? You're helping normalize for them that this is hard and that all parents struggle with it and they can make it through. By connecting with them, you're building their social connections. conversations with them. It's like I froze again. Am I back? Someone give me a thumbs up if I'm back. All right. Also, all of your agencies inherit concrete supports for parents, right? Whether you're providing classes, knowledge, information, resources, all of those are concrete supports. So supporting parents in those, knowledge of parenting and child development. Who better learn what's developmentally appropriate, what their kid is doing that's on target, what their kid is excelling at, what they can support their child with, than the early childhood environment. How many of you got that parenting book that tells you how to parent your kids when you brought them home from the hospital? Any of you? I never got my copy, right? I never. So having people that I could ask questions of, trusted people that I could ask questions of. You guys do this already with moms, right? This is kind of normative and built into our environment with moms, but really purposefully doing that same thing with fathers. And then the more that we are able to build parental resilience, the more we're building the social emotional competence of kids, because the more role models who are able to navigate things, then the more kids are able to navigate things. So I bring this idea of when we're engaging fathers, that's another protective factors. It isn't just about what risk factors are present with moms, but how are we also mitigating those risk factors with fathers? Because they have, as we just looked at, Ray went through with those slides, there's so much power in the role of the father to create long-term positive outcomes that we really miss an opportunity if we aren't engaging fathers in that, in their capacity to be protective of kids. So Ray, I'm going to let you take it away on how and why it's important to share information that aligns with that knowledge of parenting and child development. You're muted, Ray. Still muted. It's a Zoom day.
Okay.
There we go.
Missy, can you go back to the previous slide? I just want to interject something, and then we'll move toward sharing information. This number 4 in here, the fourth protective factor, is huge. And in the fatherhood work that I do, I see a real need for this. Because I think fathers are really just uninformed around the parenting and child development. And so, I think there's a huge need, and I think we should, even moving forward, look and see how we can, as agencies, collectively work together to develop something around how we can increase fathers' knowledge of parenting and child development. I think by doing this, we really are able to help fathers become more engaged in the lives of your children. Well, especially around, I see it all the time with supervised visitation. One of the things, they just don't know what age appropriate interaction is, or they don't understand how the role, or how the role of a father, what that looks like with regards to child development. I think if we can increase these, then we can increase father engagement around the lives of their children, especially go ahead, Ms. So when we talk about sharing information about the child progress, this is something that we can do as agencies to, one, even engage fathers. We can become more intentional and prioritize how we share information. And if we're not doing this as agencies, I think that it's important for us to find a way to implement that. One, that gives us the opportunity to engage fathers, and two, it educates fathers with regards to the progression of the children. I
I
want
heard
to,
some examples earlier, Ray, and I think I'd love to hear other people as well. How are you currently information about the child's progress, and how could you increase that to include fathers? Say they don't even have spots for dad's notes. I'm going to pick on the people I could see. Melissa, I saw a lot of head shaking from you. How do you currently share information from dads, and what are your opportunities to increase?
So I can't really share much on that because I really do work with the parents. I don't work one-on-one with children. I work one-on-one with parents and child care providers. But can I share something that my school does that's really great? So there's like this app that parents can get and you can see what's going on. And so you can like text back and forth with the teachers, and they like, our teachers are so great. They're like, has your husband signed up yet? And just making sure that he has that information too. And I found personally in my personal life, like my husband has been so much more engaged because he's involved, even if it's just a text message. He also is more understanding of child development. He's really gotten to a point where like he is so involved. When our child has a behavior, he's not like, go to your room, you're grounded. It's, I wonder what's going on with Jonah today. And I think that that is really where the magic happens, is that involvement with parents, with fathers.
How many of you ever heard the Ruth Bader Ginsburg story about she had been Supreme Court justice, and the school would only call her when the kid was sick, despite knowing that she was a seated Supreme Court justice. And she found, is there another parent listed on that form? From now on, you're to alternate who you call, because her husband was very active and blown away, despite knowing her role and what she was up to. So I think it's been a pattern that's gone on for a long time.
I'm gonna pick on Jimmy a little bit. So what would be your answer to this, Jimmy?
So I didn't get the question.
What agency are you with?
I'm with Adams County Child Support.
Okay. So maybe not necessarily with regards to child progress, but from a child perspective, child support perspective, what do you feel like as a child support technician that you can do to be able to engage fathers more in the process?
Well, it's mostly a lot of probing questions and addressing their barriers to why they're not able to see their children, and then coming up with solutions for them, whether it be programs that facilitate parenting time or visiting time, finding a way to modify their order so they can actually have time with their kids, or establishing the parenting time. A lot of the parents, the fathers that come through here don't have a parenting order set up, so it's mostly they weren't married, so they don't have that order set up. So it makes it hard for him to be able to engage with his child, because it gives the mother more control over when the child gets seen, and he doesn't know his rights to when he's able to see his child or anything like that. So by establishing that order, it gives him a set time and more of a structured time frame for when he can and cannot see his kid. So that helps a lot.
And I know that over the years, especially child support, been a lot of progress. Child support is a thin line with regards to child support really working toward establishing parenting time, because child support and parenting time are totally separate. However, within all the counties across the state, I've seen child support kind of line more frequently and looking at innovative ways that they can create opportunities for parenting time, especially for mediation, and offering mediation for parents.
Yeah, we offer mediation too. So that's one of the big things. As long as they weren't married. If they're married, then they have to go back to court. But if they weren't married, we can offer mediation for both parties.
Who else has come in?
How many of the childcare providers are aware of the role of child support enforcement to actually help with that mediation and get set up? Is that something you ever talk with fathers about?
Yeah, so I'm the barriers case manager for Adams County, so that's kind of my job. Anybody that has any kind of questions or issues, any barriers that's preventing them from paying, it's up to me to address them and give them all the information that I can. During establishment, I believe that's taught, that's presented to them, but honestly, when they're going through that whole process, it's so much information that they become overwhelmed, and half the stuff that they hear goes out the window. So you have to repeat a lot of the information back to them and let them know what their options are.
And Missy, while there's often an assumption that we only work with childcare providers, most of the folks on today's phone call or on this training are home visitors, as well as folks that are working directly with families and not childcare providers.
Awesome, thanks, Lisa. So how in home visiting are people connecting with those parenting time orders? And are those conversations that people are having, or what opportunities might you have to talk with either parent about establishing those parenting time orders?
Is there anyone that's currently working with parents as teachers or hippie that actually engage fathers or have processes by which to engage fathers?
We have a lot of folks on here from Nurse Family Partnership.
We've got focus points on here. Not sure if they're comfortable answering though.
Hi, everyone. This is Mayra from Focus Points. I have to say, we haven't been the greatest, but we are making headway. It was just last year that we were able to have a couple of fathers involved in our programs as participants. We became more conscious of adding photos of those fathers. And then this year, we're going to try our very first parent meeting that is more father-friendly. We're going to have a car show over the weekend, so we can actually have fathers have the opportunity to come and join, bring the entire family. So it's not something more like female oriented. So we'll let you know how that goes.
That's a great idea. I like that a lot. As far as the nurse family partnership, I really understand. I worked with the nurse family partnership in Jefferson County for some years with regards to the way their focus is really on the mother, but then what can you guys do through nurse family partnerships as workers there, as you're working with the mothers of the children, to kind of see how you may be able to engage families more through your processes?
One thing I a lot of times offer my moms, if I can, is meeting at like 6 p.m. With both mom and dad. And then also I was just thinking that maybe I could start taking pictures. We work with infants up until age 2. So in the beginning, we do a lot of floor time and tummy time. And I was just thinking I could probably start taking pictures and maybe sending during the day if dad wants to check at his lunch hour or something.
That's good. Recently became a lactation educator, and it was kind of surprised. A lot of individuals in the training were wondering, why I would want to be a lactation educator. That's one of the things I think that's important and informative for fathers, and I think it's another way to engage these processes.
We also, with NFP, have a daddy's booklet that we can give during pregnancy and early infancy so that dad can feel a little bit more involved. It's a very thorough booklet that just gives different suggestions for activities for dad to do with their baby.
Does anyone else from NFP have any other ideas as far as being able to engage fathers?
Hi, my name is Emmy. I'm with Nurse Family Partnership at Jefferson County. I'm fairly a brand new nurse, but I have gone on visits with other nurses that have full caseload, and I did notice one thing that I do like is whenever some of the other nurses, they have the fathers involved. So I think that that's important during the visits. They're always welcome to join. And then when they do join, so they're included in the educational materials, and there is, from my understanding, some facilitators and educational materials that are geared towards fathers. So just kind of probably keeping that in mind if the fathers are involved and they're with the mothers, including them in the visit as well, because it is nurse family partnership. So we do involve the father, and there is in our paperwork where we can write down and note the percentage of the father's involvement or the partner's involvement.
That's good, and I would love to, as we move forward, look at how we can partner with NFP and fatherhood as we identify those. And sometimes that may be one of the things that we can do through a partnership is utilize father support services or any father programs to assist with outreach of fathers. I do know that fathers do want to be engaged in the life, general rule, and sometimes those pathways aren't there, and they have to be created. That's something moving forward we can certainly talk about how we create those pathways and how through partnership we're reaching out to the fathers.
Ray, do you want to go into conversation around the welcoming environments? I know we had some of that come up in the early input that people were giving. I just don't know that my connection is strong to walk us through it.
Yeah, so at the end here, there's some takeaways, and we had some conversation about this within our group as well, our breakout group. But there are some really great tools out there, and I've shared a few of those with you at the in the PowerPoint that you can put away with regards to father-friendly checkups. So as agencies, I would encourage you to look at those father-friendly checkups, see where you stand with those. And it also gives you some great ideas with regards to how to become more father-friendly as an agency. But these things are huge because as fathers walk into the agencies, these are things that they notice. I hear this from fathers all the time with regards to whether they feel welcomed at an agency or not. I do believe that as NFP, there's a lot of things that can be done and that can be worked on with regards to making sure that NFP is father-friendly, because it is for parents. And so maybe these kits that I've shared or some things that can be done to make sure that your agency is father-friendly, we can take advantage of some of those areas of opportunity.
So I dropped the link to the Padlet into the chat box. I'm going to try and share my screen to walk you guys through it, but Padlet is like Pinterest for work. So you can put items on it. So some of you have seen it before. So the top item on the into that link. Are you, Stephanie, I can see you moving. So are you click into the Padlet and are you seeing it?
Yes. For the first one, what should I be seeing?
You should be seeing father-friendly.
Father-friendly checkup.
That they can actually pull that that father-friendly checkup onto their own device.
I'm sharing my screen, so.
Awesome, Lisa, thank you.
So hopefully this is what folks are
through that tool.
Yep, you can just click on it and then click download and you'll be able to open the full PDF.
And any of the items on there, I think the item that Ray was most interested in making sure you guys got was that father-friendly checkup to have some conversation. Ray, is there anything else you want to share with them about that as it's up on the screen?
I would just, strongly encourage everyone to take a look at it and see where you guys stand with that, or where you feel that you guys stand as agencies, and what you can do be able to improve and make sure that you are father-friendly.
Great, so it looks like there's a section for you to assess leadership development, as well as for you to assess and score it. Organizational development in terms of how this relates to your organization. The environment and atmosphere, or the waiting areas within your organization. And I think for home visitors, you can think about what that looks like when you walk into potentially a home, and then your staff within the organization, and how you can score how things are going around, supporting fathers that way, program development, so all sorts of things that you can maybe take a look at and do some scoring and see as an organization how you best want to make some strategies for next steps.
And I would just add, Lisa, I'm hoping my sound is better now that my camera's turned off, but it's a very comprehensive checkup. And so it probably makes sense for people not to try and approach the entire thing at one time, but to really break it down depending on your role. Just look at the category that really aligns with sort of where you show up in your engagement with fathers, or where you have the opportunities, because it's to do, but it's good for long-term planning. I just wouldn't use it as, a short-term assessment tool and think that you're going to achieve it really quickly. So you will always be able to access this on this link here. So coming in and downloading that, you should be able to do that on multiple devices. Sometimes people like to bookmark them or keep them. You can ask Heather. I like the Padlet because they're a great place to store resources. So that's also something that we've used at Illuminate as a tool, having Padlets of different resources for parents, because it's an app that they can download on their phone. So you think about that knowledge of parenting and child development stuff, you can really put information in an easily accessible format on the Padlets for Ray, anything you wanted to wrap up with? It looks like we're just about at our time. Any final questions from people or final wrap up to do?
I just want to ask, since it seems like the majority of participants that we have here today are from NFP, I think we have to be intentional and make it a priority to engage fathers. One of the things that I see that we can do, especially around non-residential fathers, too many cases where the fathers is not in the residence, there's a reason for that. I think that that becomes a barrier for you guys doing your work and for me doing my work. But also I see in a lot of situations, fathers do have parenting time with those children. You guys have so much information in education that you can provide to non-residential fathers that maybe if we are able to become creative and get outside the box, that's a whole another program that we can develop through NFP specifically for non-residential.
So Ray, I think I'd like to wrap up. We do, have folks on here from NFP and other home visiting programs. I know we've got folks on here from other programs as well. So one thing that is going to happen after this is that we will be hosting with Ray, and I don't know if Missy will be joining us, 2 additional sessions. They're going to be kind of learning circles, 1 hour each. And so, Ray, is there anything that would be helpful for folks? I mean, are we going to be going over the checklist, or is there anything else that you want folks to think about if they're interested in attending those follow-up learning circles?
Yes, I would like for you guys just to kind of take a look at the checklist that we provided and see what's hot or what's not, or what works or what may not work within your agencies, and let's have some dialogue about that. But I also want to really cater to the MO, and I'll share that with you on our next session with regards to what the Office of Administration for Families are looking at with regards to how we can better engage fathers and how we can make this a priority within our agencies. And so that's something that maybe you guys can give some thought to, and we can have some talk around in our next sessions. Because clearly business as usual is not working. So I think that oneness is going to be on us to look at how we can innovate and create. Those are some of the things that I'd like to discuss.
Great. So you guys will all be invited to those learning circles. If you're interested in attending, I will send out the documents in case you were unable to click on them and download them yourself. And I also have put a link to the evaluation in the chat. please use that as an opportunity to tell us what you'd like to see in the learning circles as well, or anything you feel like we can improve upon, so that the next time we meet, we are able to address what you need most. So thanks everybody for your time, and have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.